Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam for another episode of the Cinema Savvy Christmas Classics. It feels like a series that there should be like a fireplace, like logs burning, everyone sitting on ridiculously high chairs to elaborate and talk further about posh films, films up themselves. But no, we're not talking It's a Wonderful Life. We're talking Jingle All The Way today. The Christmas classic, obviously that's not just the name of the series, this is a literal Christmas classic, a film very near and dear to my heart at this time of year, and we're going to be talking a lot about our history with it, our experiences with this film, looking back at it 27 years later, because this came out the same year I was born, which is terrifying, looking at some of the cast members, of course. But before we get into any of that sort of stuff, Sam, how are we doing today?
I'm very good, thank you. Watched this for the first time in a very long time today. I was like, will I cry at this one? Because I've cried at Muppet Christmas Carol, I've cried at It's a Wonderful Life. And yes, I cried at this as well. So I'm 3 for 3 now. I really don't think I'll cry at the next one, but there's still time. Something may happen. But yeah, we'll watch out for that one on Christmas Eve. But yes, aside from that, I'm very good. Very happy to be talking this film.
Excellent. And for people wondering what the next one's going to be, of course, we're releasing these every Wednesday, Sunday, sorry. The final one's going to be Christmas Eve. This is going up on Wednesday the 20th. We are, of course, pre-recording it. Recording it on Monday the 18th, to be precise. That might pop up that date for a little reminder later on. But yeah, there's going to be one more. We'll announce it in the video. And as we said, with this series, it's not reviews, it's not retrospectives. Yes, we're looking back at films of before, but we're not dissecting it scene by scene. We're not going through the entire cast. We're not talking about the behind the scenes on everything. We're just sort of picking and choosing what we want to talk about, the meaning of Christmas within those films, why it maybe resonates with us, with other people, and at some point over the years to build up what we could say is, our own Christmas classic series, which this is. So 4 episodes for 2023, but presuming the internet doesn't wipe out next year and we're still a thing, there'll be probably a lot more, probably 8 next year by Christmas, who knows? And it means we can spice it up a little. We can do some alternate Christmas films and whatnot. But before we carry on, I do want to hear from people at home. So please do comment your thoughts on Jingle All The Way, your thoughts on this film, the cast members, everything else, your memories with it, of course. That's a really important one. And this is going to be probably, I don't want to say the most divisive one yet, but we'll talk about this one's reputation probably across the video today. It's one of those films we'll be comparing to a certain series for many reasons, actually. But also, if you want to go get us on social media to find out what other videos we're working on, what else we're doing, you can get us on linktree.com/cinemasavvy, Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd, Instagram. We've got other videos coming up on the channel, TBC, when. I was meant to do a review for Titanic 4K UHD this week. Amazon decided to lie, saying they delivered my copy of the film when they haven't. So I don't have it to review, to rewatch. So there will be hopefully a home media review for that, but I'm not going to lie. If it gets like Christmas, it's not here, I ain't doing it. But talking Jingle All The Way, streaming on Disney Plus, I'm going to add for people curious at home. We've started this series. Each week, we've come on, Sam. I'll say it every time. This series is your idea. This is very much your baby, and we're running with it. And it's a pretty great series. As someone that doesn't watch Christmas films, I've now watched more Christmas films this year than probably in the last 10 years, if I'm honest. Because we haven't got someone new on, we're not going to ask the same question, but I'm going to put you on the spot for something that resonates with today's episode. What country mile? Obviously, this film is like the quest for Turbo Man, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, and I don't want this to sound like not arrogant or sound like a child, this. What was the one maybe toy or thing you were desperate for at Christmas? It doesn't matter if you got it or didn't get it, but what would be of you remember your Turbo Man?
It's really funny you should say that, because there was something that I was going to bring up, and actually I was too young to even remember it. But for anyone out there who was alive in the late 90s, people might know about a certain TV show called The Teletubbies. And the search for Poe, because one Christmas, it could have been 96, it could have been 97, maybe 98, but probably 97, I think. Everyone was searching for Poe, and I don't remember because I was only 2 years old, but I really wanted Poe, and my mum searched everywhere to get it. Literally was Howard in this film. not punching reindeers, but was searching for this Poe, and eventually she got it. I don't know how, I can't remember. She has told this story since, but it's not really one that I'm like, oh yeah, tell that one again. But yeah, that's one toy that I actually did get. One that I wish I would have got was probably during Phantom Menace era. I was desperate for everything, absolutely everything. And one of the things that I really wanted was anything to do with Gala, because I was obsessed. Didn't know why back then, really. Kind of know why now. Love that character, and gay men have a lot of female icons, and to me, she's one of the best ones ever. But I really wanted an Naboo Royal Starship. I wanted that starship. I loved the chrome, and just I knew people who got it, like the massive one that opened up, and I never got it. I didn't. I got so much other stuff, so I was never like super upset about it. But do you know when that's just something where it's like, if I would have had that,
Yeah.
I had like 2 or 3 N1 starfighters, so it just would have been perfect. One of my cousins eventually got a secondhand Naboo hangar where he could put his N1 starfighters and everything in. It's like, if I could have had that set of the Royal Starship and the hangar, it just would have been game over. It really would have. And I even saw it in this film. I saw, in one of the toy stores, micro machines, and I had Star Wars micro machines, and of course, like some cars and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, there's probably a lot more things that I would have wanted as well, but those are probably like the 2 very like earliest things that one that I don't remember and got, and one that I do remember and didn't get.
Okay. I'll go similar, right? I'll do one I got, one I didn't, and this isn't just us breaking out charges. This is everyone's. I want to hear what this is to other people, because different generations are going to have different things. I'm going to give 2 stories. One when I was 6, and the other when I was 13. 13? Yeah. Right. Okay. The one I got 2009 Christmas. We know Santa's not real at this point in life. There was only one thing I wanted for Christmas. All I wanted was a Guitar Hero World Tour. Not just the guitar, but it had the drum kit, it had the microphone, it had all of it, and I was desperate for it. And at that point in my life, I'd probably say I actually knew a bit more about music than I do today, like modern music or like music that isn't soundtracks. And I remember it on Christmas Day clearly. And maybe I'm going to get slightly personal with the next part of the story, but obviously we know it's not real, and obviously, like, not that I know the box, but you can't really hide like a giant drum kit game guitar type thing. So on Christmas Day, I go into the lounge. As I said, I didn't really ask for much back then. I don't ask for much now, but it was like, you're going to get a main present, we'd call it.
Yeah.
And there was no big box. And there was a massive box, and I was buzzing, and I saved it to the end. And now I'm remembering it. It was a giant gaming beanbag. And I was like, the look of disappointment was immeasurable, because obviously, when it's in a box that big, like massive, it wasn't Guitar Hero. And it was cool. And I had the beanbag for years. But anyway, the phone rings for the dining room. So our lounge is connected to a dining room. And I walked into the dining room, and there was a massive box with wrapping up. And I looked down and then went to the phone and answered. There was no one there. I was like, oh. Put the phone. I went back in the lounge, went to my dad, like, no one there. And Mum was like, I'm pretty sure your nan's trying to ring you, because she lives in Spain at that point in time. And she rings again. And they put the phone down. She goes, just bring the box in from the dining room. So I brought the box in. And it was a little trick they'd done. And it was Guitar Hero. And we spent the entirety of Christmas Day playing Guitar Hero in the lounge. It was wild. I had it for many years. The drum kit eventually broke. I got good at Guitar Hero. But that was one thing I got, and I was really happy. And again, like, that age, like 13, like, I was massive on gaming and stuff, and I was very lucky to get that. People would come around from school to play it, because it was the full thing. But another one similar to you, not one I desperately wanted, but there was one Christmas 2002, and I was 6, and I remember this. Obviously, you think Santa is real. Obviously, a little film came out that year called Attack of the Clones. And I don't know if you remember this, maybe people of a certain age will. You used to be able to get really good Star Wars merchandise at TK Maxx when you were younger. And I'm telling you, like, I remember the stickers, they'd be like reduced, like, this Lego's like half price, and it'd been out like a couple of months. It isn't like today's market where being dropped after 2 years.
Hmm.
And all I wanted was the ATTE. For those that don't know what that is, that's like not the Republic gunship, but the four-legged thing that the gunships would drop off in that film. And maybe this is a bit selfish as a 6-year-old kid. Like, I know now because in COVID, I went through every set I had as a kid, like restored them. I had every single original 2002 Attack of the Clones Star Wars Lego sets, which again, that sounds like a lot. I think it was probably maybe 10 sets maximum. And as again, back then it's like £8 for one of those sets. And they were across a couple of years I got those sets, not like in 6
All in one
months.
Christmas.
Yeah. But I didn't get the ATT and I was like gutted. And what made it worse is that I got the Republic gunship, which is one of the most elite presents a child can ever have. But it was like, not that I wanted both, but it was like, that was the one I wanted more as a kid. Can't complain. Still had the gunship, built it and loved it. Jelly Bob is a thing and we have it. But yeah, a weird tangent talking about, but listen, this is the film, right? Jingle All The Way. It's one of the films that we're going to talk about this a lot more and the meaning of it. But I think this is a film I would grow up to have said will end up being one of the most relatable Christmas films with respect to the story. I mean, we haven't even done the letterbox synopsis. We're going to do that now. The letterbox synopsis, people watching at home, followed us. We might have to go back to IMDb because these are a bit too long. Meet Howard Langston, a salesman for a mattress company, is constantly busy at his job, and he also constantly disappoints his son. After he misses his son's karate exposition, his son tells Howard that he wants for Christmas is an action figure of his son's television hero. He tries hard to make it up to him. Unfortunately for Howard, it's Christmas Eve, and every store is sold out of Turbo Man. Now Howard must travel all over town and compete with everybody else to find a Turbo Man action figure. Name on the tin for what this is. The ultimate dad Christmas film, the dad that's not got the family the present they want on Christmas Eve. Pre-internet is probably going to be a massive reason as to why this experience is different these days. But I'm going to kind of jump to you first, Sam, rather than me. I want to know I know you mentioned I haven't watched it in quite a while. I want to know your memories with this, maybe when you were younger as well, like just your history with it, because I think this is a really not just interesting Christmas film. I think everyone's not just experience, but everyone's thoughts on the film are different. And this is certainly one where, as I've got older, I've seen more people talk about it in positive ways. And like a certain Star Wars trilogy, you one day went on the internet and found out people hated this film, which I always thought was really strange because it was like one of those childhood films of mine.
Yeah, I think, and I've mentioned, in the past, either on Cinema Savvy or like on other forms, but my dad was really not kind of like the biggest film nerd, but there was certain films that he really enjoyed and he would watch. And I'm not saying Jingle All The Way is one of them, but I feel like he was always open to the films that me and my sister wanted to watch, and was always happy to either sit with us or to put on a film that we wanted. So this is one that I remember watching as a kid, and I've not watched it since. I don't think all the way through since he passed, actually. So it's been over 20 years since I've watched it all the way through. I always end up seeing bits of the end, but for the life of me, because it's been so long, I'd really forgotten everything that happens up to that finale. And so I went into this knowing, right, okay, this could be really weird because I know, that the focus is on a father and son, and that like is automatically kind of like an, oh no, could I get emotional at that? But then also, it's all about, Turbo Man, who is, the hero, and I know that Arnie's going to be the hero, and it's just, it's really lovely. But my memories as a child of this was really kind of just enjoying it, because by that point, by the time that I can remember, I knew that Jake Lloyd was Anakin. And so it was always great to see him. Everyone, I feel like all my life I've known who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. So it's just kind of like, he's in it. That's great. Turbo Man, just as a product, looks really cool. In retrospect now, I really get kind of, it reminds me of things like Radioactive Man in The Simpsons or the Crimson Chin from Fairly Odd Parents. Like, it's just like these like kind of generic kind of style superheroes that shouldn't be as cool as they look, but they actually do look pretty cool. And if you were in that universe, you would probably want it. even though what was Booster. I really appreciate the name Turbo Man and Booster. I really got a kick out of hearing that for the first time. Though I found it so sad that I was like, we all hate Booster, like, and just start like wailing on him. So funny, but yeah. So I enjoyed it as a kid, really liked it, and yeah, I don't know whether it was a mix of either maybe it not being on TV as much, as we get into like the mid noughties, or whether I just actually wasn't watching it. I don't know, but yeah, I've just not watched it for over 20 years. So it was nice to go watch it now. And I said this, and I always say this from a lot of films that I've not seen in that long. It's really interesting to get my perspective on it now compared to when I was a kid. And I got a lot of enjoyment out of this. A lot of humor. There was a lot of bits where I just had like a little laugh or something. It made I wasn't keeling over, but I really appreciated it. And I think there's a lot of things that as a kid you won't get. And there's acting choices that I made in this film which I really enjoyed, and even having actors like Martin Mull and Phil Hartman in this, who I really didn't know very well at that time. Actually having to known a bit more about them now, and to see them in this is really great. So yeah, it's been weird to come back to this after so long, but I think it's an excellent choice. And I think, George, you were the one who kind of said, oh yeah, we should watch this film.
Yeah, I mean, going with that, I know with your dad as well, when we spoke about it before, and we know the Star Wars prequels, that Jake Lloyd's a big talking point, and we'll talk about them later. And it wasn't in a cruel way like me, I want Sam to watch it because of that. But this film with me, obviously we've done, context, people behind the scenes. We kickstarted Muppets Christmas Carol, which was like a very safe option. It's a classic. I've not seen it. It's not that heavy. It's the Muppets. It's Michael Caine. There's so many great things going for it to be the first episode. Go the heavyweight. It's a Wonderful Life number 2. And we knew that straight away. You're not going to do this series this year, kickstart 4 episodes, and not do It's a Wonderful Life. And then episode 4, which went out to the end, was fairly self-explanatory. And then Jingle All The Way sort of popped up. And in my head, it probably is one of my favorite Christmas films, if not the favorite Christmas film. And I can't sit there and tell you, like, we didn't have it on VHS, and I don't know why I remember seeing it every year when I was younger. It must have been on like ITV or 4 or something as a kid. But we had like a VHS area, and the VHSs would come out at Christmas. We had the Snowman, Santa Claus, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Jack Frost was a big one in our household. I said the Snowman, didn't I? There's every family's got their set, like, these are your Christmas films. Pre-internet era. Obviously, Jake Lloyd behind me on the wall, a poster. As a kid, I knew that was Anakin Skywalker. Before Hayden Christensen was Anakin, Jake Lloyd was Anakin. He was a similar age to me. Well, he's probably about 7-8 years older. But as a kid, watching Star Wars on VHS on loop, you can even see the VHS, the corner of my screen. He was the hero. As a kid, you wanted to be not Hayden Christensen, you wanted to be Jake Lloyd until Hayden Christensen was Anakin. Then you wanted to be both of them. But when you were that young, and this is, without getting to a Star Wars discussion, this is one of those fundamental reasons why I don't want to talk about what happened after The Phantom Menace came out, but the adult age group, and this is why I'm so chill with the sequel trilogy. I mean, I like 2 of the 3 films. I know I always say that, but I was the target audience. You were the target audience. We were kids. This was our Star Wars. And the fact that in 1999, there were grown men in their 30s who just couldn't understand why Star Wars was suddenly a kids' film. It always was. I just couldn't fathom growing up to find out what would happen to him for being in a Star Wars film. But for me, going back to a childhood, Anakin Skywalker was in this Christmas film I'd watch all the time. And his dad was Mr. Freeze. And yes. this is it, right? And, we had the Batman on DVD, Batman and Robin. And we would always watch Batman and Robin and Batman Forever on loop as kids. We never saw the Tim Burton ones. I didn't see the Tim Burton ones until after The Dark Knight. But,
oh, wow. Yeah. That's really interesting.
The Joel Schumacher films, but on loop in our household, we all loved them. I was obviously in love with Poison Ivy, as every kid probably was at that age.
I
But
appreciated her for a very different reason.
yeah,
Again, very similar to Queen Amidala. I'm like, yes.
exactly. But I knew Mr. Freeze, and I was like, oh my god, it's the guy in the really fucking cool suits, because this is important for Jingle All The Way as well. Obviously, you don't know what a pun is at that age, but he's making ice jokes. They're on ice skates playing hockey. Again, a film you didn't realize people hate till 20 years later. That one I understand a little bit more. But this was the perfect Christmas film for me as a child. And the fact at the end of the day, it was about a kid wanting a toy. And as a kid, you want toys at Christmas every year. I don't know the meaning. Like, it's not like rubbing in your face that Santa's not real. Like, I knew he wasn't real from age of 7 or 8, but it's about the dad trying to get his son a present. And I thought it was hilarious. The shopping bits, the comedy bits, the fights, everything. And as I've got older, not only have I appreciated this film even more, but you've realised, like, oh, it's not how real it is, because it literally ends with, like, someone almost killing a child over a toy. But you realise how common that also is for dads to have not gone and got their Christmas stuff. And in our household, I've had times before where I've told one of my parents, I'd like this for Christmas. I tell it's the wrong parent. And then mum has a confused look when I basically say, oh, I'd asked for something. Again, not to sound like a sports child. But it's a really, personally, it's a big film of mine. And I always joke about I don't watch Christmas films. Every year there are 2 Christmas films I watch, and this is one of the 2. So, again, I'm not going to say obviously what's coming next week. We'll announce at the end. But it's a really special one. This, and kind of, again, this series, it's not a review. It's not a deep dive as such. We're going to talk about bits of this, but as we've sort of both seen it, we spoke about memories with it. We spoke about why I've sort of picked it. Rather than talk about Christmas and the story, should we talk about the 2 actors to really kickstart this? Because if I'm honest, I think they are what's defied this film is the fact that it is Jake Lloyd and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But I'd actually say this, watching it again today, they make a really believable father and son, bar the accent, obviously. But, like, there's a scene where I think he's about to say, like, I'm your father. I almost turned it into an accent then. And in my head, I'm like, he says that to Luke Skywalker at some point in his life.
Yeah.
And it's, again, you can't take Star Wars out of this film. Obviously, this film is 3 years older than The Phantom Menace. And one thing I'll say to get this out there, to bring up the Star Wars side of it again, whenever anyone watches that classic Phantom Menace documentary, and all these people always say, there was clearly a better kid actor who looked exactly like Luke Skywalker. Take the context of 1997 when they're casting. Jake Lloyd's just been in this Christmas film with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's been acting. He's been on sets. He's been on big productions. It was probably always going to go to him, really. But I'm sort of curious. Like, I mean, I've spoken about Jake Lloyd a bit. It's really hard because you don't want to talk about what's happened to him, not in like a non-rude, but talking about his character in this film. I think he's not just adorable as a kid, but I feel like I was that as a kid, that you had your heroes who were the people on TV. You had your heroes who were the people on films, the toys you're playing with. I know you know Power Rangers. And let's be honest, Turbo Man, the opening 5-minute sequence, is basically a Power Rangers episode.
And there was literally a Turbo Power Rangers film that came out a year later, actually a few months after this in 97, and then a series called Power Rangers Turbo, which is more coincidental than anything else. But I feel like that kind of lexicon was really, really, powering up during that time. But no, I think you're right with Jake Lloyd. It is a sad story overall, but I feel like, and we've spoken about this a lot anyway, just because we are, very similar age. But when you watch these films as a kid, I don't think you realize at the time, but you do see yourself in these characters. So whether or not it's Home Alone, and you're thinking, oh, if I was Macaulay Culkin, I'd love to be in that situation.
Yeah.
Or if I was in Jingle All The Way, I'd love to be Jake Lloyd's character, and have this dad who becomes Turbo Man, or whatever film like that. I think you just automatically do it because that's the closest thing to you that you see, and so you attach yourself a little bit to it. So I think especially when these are such early memories of ours with film, it does stick with you. And I think I was watching. I was really impressed with his performance in this. I really was. You know, considering how young, and you know, I feel like with child actors, it's very hit and miss sometimes. Some people just don't have it, or it takes a while to actually really, you know, develop your craft and do it. And I don't think anyone should be expecting a child actor to be the best performer in the world. There's very few who just so naturally get it. So I think, you know, he does a great job. I think he has a lot of natural charisma that really helps. And I think that's really what lent to him being a natural fit for Anakin as well. Like, you need someone who's a bit more, just got a bit about them, a bit more personality, a bit more, you know, pizzazz or whatever. And I think he just has that. And he really bounces off, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger really well. Um, I think there's a point in the beginning where I was like, wow, maybe Jake Lloyd might be out acting Arnie here. Something at one point I was like, it was like a line that Arnie said. I was like, oh god, that was a bit. Maybe we should have done another take with that one. But yeah, but no, it was just really good. I really liked seeing him in this, and it just goes, oh, it's just such a shame that he didn't have a real career. Because who knows? And I know with a lot of child stars anyway, they end up quitting at a certain point. But you just don't know. And I feel like with him, it's just kind of missed potential. And I know there's many things that happened, but it's just a shame that, you know, something which should be something as great as Star Wars could lead to someone's downfall so early. Very sad, but I mean, for Jingle All the Way, really excellent. Really liked, you know, what he was doing. He's not got too much to do, but with what he has, it's there. And I think, you know, the finale is like where, you know, I say all the action, but all his like action really takes place running away from Sinbad. But but no, it's all good.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one because you kind of want to talk about the character, but then you want to talk about what's happened with his life and his acting. And as you kind of talk about the child actors, certainly, I know we'll use Harry Potter as the template here in the UK. That the UK, obviously we've had the SAG strikes this year, which were much needed. And when I was reading through all the TNCs when they went on strike, the thing that really caught me off guard more than anything was like reading about the conditions for child actors in America. Now, we've always known they're abysmal compared to the UK, but just reading some of what they were rejecting about child actors, because it was one by one, the producers, the AMPAS was rejecting it, and I couldn't believe what they want to put these kids through. And in my head, you look at the Harry Potter films now, there's just been a really incredible documentary called The Boy Who Lived that's just come out on Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double for the majority of these films, which I recommend people watch on HBO in America, Sky in the UK, and that's eye-opening into the production, kid acting, how people get into stunt stuff like that. Really, really interesting documentary for people that like film. And the Harry Potter cast, you read stories that they all went to school together. Why? Because the UK filming laws is kid actors can't work more than half a day, acting. It's whereas in America they can put kids on set for unlimited hours. And as you get older, you know, you find out about young actors where, not saying Jake Lloyd, but I'm just generalizing, where the struggles with whether it be substance abuse, whether it be anything, whether they're quitting acting first and foremost, where they don't want to continue anymore, whether it's parents taking advantage of them. A lot of it stems from their treatment on sets and why they're doing it in the first place. And this is a really random tangent to go on, but I think this is going to be a thing for YouTubers in the future, because you hear stories of these kids who are like 7, 8, doing YouTube channels from the age of 4 and 5. They've got no conscience that lets them do that. That's their parents, and certainly successful ones. So there's loads of stuff like this. And in this film, kind of sticking with what we've been talking about, as you kind of said as well, like he's the character of Jay Minute. He's like the every lad type thing, that he's just an adorable child. And I've said this before, not just because he's a very cute actor. And I think when you look at kid actors in films performances, I think sometimes you can see and think that is someone that's going to be in a few more, because a lot of them might only be in one film, maybe you might just do stage stuff. But and you could ever say, okay, and then you get maybe your Natalie Portman's, okay, she's a bit older, but you're looking at Natalie Portman's for film, but like she is gonna be a star in the next few years. Millie Bobby Brown started Stranger Things, you know, she is going to be, and it's normally because they're head and shoulders of actors of a similar age. And I just think with Jake Lloyd, obviously you could read the stories about the treatment he had at school. Forget just abuse of grown adults, like the people he went to school with. He ended like getting rid of all of his merchandise from the stuff he'd worked on. He'd quit acting very young, and it's really sad. And then obviously you have the issues as he's got older with his own health, with family members that passed away. It is just devastating. And I remember seeing a clip in like maybe the late noughties where he was at a convention and he did an interview, and these guys are just like berating him to his face, thinking they're really funny, and he's so polite with them. He's so respectful, and you can just see it in him. Like he was up for an interview to talk to people, but they're just destroying him to his face, and it's a really sad thing. Listen, I'm not going to sit and say I'd love to be in a convention, I'd love to do something like that. You know, people have spoken about stuff like that before, and it's a really tricky scenario. Whatever he needs to get better and to live his life the way he needs to live his life is absolutely bang on. But at the same time, if the opportunity ever came for him where maybe one day he wants to not look back, but wants to actively be involved with what he'd done with his career, then I do hope the industry treats him well and brings that. I'm not talking about conventions, I'm not talking about Celebration or Lucasfilm, but it's a really horrible story. And I know this is like a downer for this Christmas series and stuff, but it's such a big part, and at least of my childhood, like literally I said, he's on the poster up there, is one of he's playing the most iconic character in history as far as I'm concerned of cinema. And I think what makes it worse is it didn't matter what kid was cast in that role. I think every single child actor would have had the same treatment as him post 1999. And so I've seen people then use this to attack George Lucas, and I don't think that's the case either. It's the immaturity of grown people, and it's just the basics of humanity that they can't fathom themselves. And I know this is a real way off tangent point, but it's a big thing, and it's kind of sad because he's great in this film. I enjoy his character in this film, and I think, as you mentioned, he's got great chemistry, not just, of course, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but even with like the other kids around him, or when he's interacting with his mom as well. It's hard to watch this and not think about what's happened to him.
Yeah, and no one could foresee either. I mean, there's you don't expect the level of intense scrutiny that he got, and I think you're right about in terms of like his treatment. I would hope, especially after kind of what's happened, with people again from Star Wars like Ahmed Best and Hayden Christensen, that he'd just be treated with a little bit of respect, which I think is the least he deserves. And I think, and a lot of it I think comes from the media. I really do. I mean, there's so much spin that they have, and I think in this environment, in this modern environment where everyone's got access to, well, a lot of people have got access to the internet and can widely share their views. I think it could be really difficult for someone like that to kind of make more public appearances and stuff because of the levels of scrutiny that they could get nowadays compared to back then. If they thought it was bad back then, I would be very frightened for children nowadays if they were in that position. I mean, it's bad enough for adults anyway, never mind younger people. So yeah, but I think his performance in this speaks true, and I think considering the role he's playing, the age he is, he does a brilliant job. And it's just nice to see. It's just nice to see, someone doing a good job, and us being able to say, do you know what, you did a good job. We really appreciated that as a kid, as when we were kids, and now we can look at it completely differently and go, yeah, we really appreciate that this film had a really likable actor who we also really appreciate from something else too, and that he had great chemistry with everyone. And I think that's all you can really ask for out of someone.
Yeah, it is that exactly. And kind of sticking with it, we talk about Arnie in a bit more detail. I mean, we spoke about him. I don't. You'd have been on the Terminator reviews, but obviously we spoke about a few Arnie films this year. We did the James Cameron retrospective. He's instantly one of the most iconic faces in cinema. The biggest action star of the 80s. then doing family comedies in the 90s, ending up being the governor of California, an incredible career. Actually, not just plugging it, but the Netflix documentary on him this year was very, very good. I like the Slade one, 3 episodes, 1 hour each, 1 hour on bodybuilding, 1 hour on acting, 1 hour on politics. An incredible career. Jingle All The Way is, as I said, the second thing I said him in. But I'll tell you this, and I've respected Arnie the more and more as I've got older, and the more I've seen his approach to acting, what he wanted to do. He is just fundamentally incredible in these family roles. And I don't know what it is about. I don't know if it's because he's so abnormally big. He is like, not even the ideal dad, but no kid can look at Arnie and think that's their dad ever, except his actual real life children. Because he's so recognizable whenever he's in a like this. And I just love the concept that you've got this genuinely nice guy. He just hasn't been able to get his kid a present, not because he didn't want to, because he's just busy. And it's his quest to get the desirable toy on Christmas Eve. It's such a basic thing. God knows how many times it's happened in real life. In my head, I'm picturing The Phantom Menace in '99, where maybe not Christmas Eve, but people trying to get the merch when they come out. It's bad enough these days with like, well, I don't know if pops are big anymore, but when limited edition stuff comes out and it's the parents trying to get it and things like that, concert tickets, I guess, is a big one.
Yes,
it's such an amazing thing that doing a Christmas film on it. If I'm honest, maybe this isn't the first one, but it really took them till the mid-90s to do a film on a dad trying to get their kid the perfect Christmas present. Like, it's actually such a ridiculous concept. It's so perfect. And this film, it isn't a let's just follow him going to shops. There's bombs and terrorist attacks. There's shopping centers. There's adult jokes in here that really caught me off guard, that definitely couldn't be said today. And there's some light humor, which is just hilarious. And I just think Arnie, I don't know why he has such a great presence in these family roles, but it's like a fish out of water as a compliment. Like, it worked. The first time they put him in, I don't know if Kindergarten Cop was his first comedy, but it worked. And whenever you see him in these films, there's something so natural. And I think it's because he's genuinely like a good bloke. That you look at him in his interviews, I'm not saying he's staged for like PR and stuff, but you look at his approach to life, what he speaks about, even like him on his Twitter account these days, he runs his own newsletter. He's sitting in the mountains in Austria, just chilling by himself with all his pet goats. He's a remarkable individual. And I think this film, I look at him and I'm not looking at it because of the film success. Maybe 10, 20, 30 actors could have done this role in their lifetime. And I think if they did, it would have just blended into another Christmas film. I think you look at this, and this is the Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas film. And I don't think anyone else could ever have done this justice.
Yeah, I think of actors like, Jim Carrey could have done this, potentially. I think maybe it'd be too similar to something like a Liar or something. But Arnie's one of those, you just have such a preconception of what he is because of Terminator, that because even as a kid who hadn't seen Terminator, I knew that he's on the poster. Like he's such an integral part of that franchise and the most iconic part of that franchise outside of Sarah Connor. So yeah, it's very weird. I don't know what film I saw him in first. It could have been this. It could have been Batman and Robin. It was probably one of the two. We definitely throw Kindergarten Cop in there. But I think he is. I would describe him just as a friendly giant. Is what it seems like. He seems so innocent in what he's trying to do, but the fact that we have Arnie as a character called Howard Langston, I think is so funny in and of itself because it just doesn't sound real. And I think that's part of it. It's like, it really feels like they were in on jokes and stuff. It's like, yeah, we know this is not the most believable thing, but because the story is relatively normal, the actual plot is not like the most outlandish thing ever. It's a normal thing that anyone could get into that's then heightened to a certain extent. And I think for me, those are very much stories that I like. And I think that's why, I feel like I bring The Simpsons up all the time, but I feel like early seasons of The Simpsons probably I enjoy more than others just because it's relatively normal to a point. and then it's just heightened. And I like that with films and TV shows where you can believe that you can believe it and stretch your imagination a little bit. And I think mid to late 90s is a really weird era because I feel like the early 90s are so close to the 80s in how they look and feel. And we're really starting to get out of that, but we're not yet in noughties territory, and it's still a lot of practical stuff, even though we see some questionable CGI and things towards the end. But it's a real time capsule, and I think at this point merchandise and toys become such not an easy thing to get, but they're everywhere. You can't go to any form of shopping center, mall, store without seeing a collection of something of, oh, this is the hottest. These are the hottest items that are out. So yeah, it's super relatable, and he makes it funny. He really does. He is trying so earnestly to get this action figure, not doll, and I just think it's all about the ride. What situation he's going to get into next. Oh, Sinbad's here again. Myron is just always on his tail doing something, and you like him for 2 minutes, and then it's like, oh my god, just go away. Like, I love that whole dynamic, and I just think his presence is a joy. And I think with anyone else, this could be a lot more bland. I think because of the type of story, I think it really hinges on him, but he's so likable and so funny, whether it's intentional or not. It just works, and I think he really is the clincher. If it wasn't for him, I don't think this film would work as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, and certainly one thing as well. Like watching this after doing True Lies earlier this year, the True Lies whole dynamic of like, is my wife cheating on me at home, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger? The fact that is going again, kind of unintentionally, sort of makes it even better. That like, not it's a film I've seen before, but when they want to do the comedy, this time in a family film, not a James Cameron spy adventure, it works so well. And kind of sticking with this film, I know we spoke a lot about the cast, and the cast is a very different story. I love that you mentioned about The Simpsons, because you're right. It's an hour and a half, the way films were, the good old days. The fact that you mentioned The Simpsons, that made me think of Family Guy. Like, it's like the chicken, the turkey that fights Peter Griffin, and it just like they fight across like the world. Yeah. And it's like, that's basically Sinbad and Schwarzenegger in this film. But really sticking with it, I mean, listen, it's a Christmas film, right? This isn't really a film about Christmas itself. And that's one of the other big things, that, okay, it's set at Christmas Eve. It's about what the son wants. The character hasn't 180 because of the time of year. The character hasn't changed. It's actually a really plain and simple, like, family film. Yes, it's about getting a present. And in my headspace, I think, like, what is a fundamental Christmas? Is it selfish and childish to say getting presents? No, that is literally. I'm not going to make a comment on any religious matters. Like, I'm not a religious person, but aside from the religious reasons of Christmas, I'd say that the gift giving is superseded that in almost every way possible. I don't mean that as I'm not like bantering it or taking the piss. Like, the concept of gift giving at Christmas is the biggest symbolism of Christmas from my perspective, at least. I'm not assuming that's how it is for everyone else, but that's how I feel a lot of the world is with Christmas. And to have a Christmas film actually be about that dynamic of it. I know The Grinch kind of is because he's stealing Christmas, but that's more about self-discovery. But this is a simple father and son tale to do with getting a present so the kid's Christmas isn't ruined. And I think that that's quite noble within itself. And if I'm just stating the obvious, but I don't think it's something people talk about all too much. And as we said, there aren't Christmas films like this. Home Alone, completely different. That's not really about what the meaning of Christmas and Christmas Day is. That's an incredible concept done at Christmas time. Someone's going to comment and give me abuse for something I've said about Home Alone. But does that sound weird to me to talk about, like that being the centric Christmas theme? Because it's certainly what I relate to. Like, not that I've had to run around on a Christmas getting people presents, but I know what it's like when you've got a couple of days. I mean, my dad's birthday is the 22nd of December. My mom's the 2nd of December. Christmas is the 25th. So, like, I'm used to getting presents in December for people. But I don't know, like, is that weird for me to say? Because when I think of this film, like, that's how I think of Christmas. And not that I only think of Christmas for buying presents or getting presents. I think of trees. I think of food, work. Yeah. You know, if you've been in retail, you've thought of work. the music, everything. And there's so many ingredients that make Christmas what it is. But in my head, the gift giving is actually by quite a margin the most significant part from my experience in my life of 27 years. Not slating anyone for any religious reasons at all.
Yeah, I feel like this film could have gone in a lot of different directions in what it was trying to do. And because, I mean, I was watching it, I think, oh, this could be a real consumerism related thing. Like this, there could be
Yeah.
so many comments made about this. And there are, don't get me wrong, there are. But, you know, you could have had this where Howard is, you know, really not earning a lot. They could have had, it could have been the direction, oh, this family's not got a lot. The son really wants this one toy. You know, it costs money. He's not been able to get it.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but Christmas.
Kind of, a little bit, yeah. And, you know, I think they could have maybe had a stronger message. I think the message is just that, you know, really the son, yeah, wanted the toy, but at the end of the day, he just wanted his dad to be there, which is a really nice theme. And I think that's one that will last over time anyway, more so than anything else. But I do see that this film potentially could be more widely regarded, or well regarded anyway, if they had gone for more of a deeper meaning than just that. So I don't know, but I think having those scenes where it's literally people fighting for plastic balls, you know, and in a way it was like, oh, this is funny, but at the same time, like, oh, this is kind of really sad, like that you're doing this. And I think after
It could happen. Sorry, this sounds sorry to jump in, but I'm going back to the mid-10s on Black Friday. And
Yeah.
there was a couple of years where Black Friday did peak and it was people fighting like this. And that's what I thought of watching this. Sorry, I jumped in and nabbed your point, but it's something I forgot about.
No, it's true. No, that's the thing. Like, it's not far and away from reality. And I don't know what my mum went through when she was trying to get that Poe doll, but I mean, it could have been somewhat similar. I don't think it was that similar, but you never know. And there's always that mob mentality anyway. And we've seen a few times where like either riots have broken out because of certain things and whatnot, usually because of more serious matters than an action figure. But there are times where, and we've seen it where certain bits of media take over the world and everyone wants a bit of it. So this is where I say it's like, oh, it's an everyday thing, but just heightened, because I could very easily see this happen. Though, you know, it's just funny. I just find it funny. And I think the main thing is to go into this film is to not take it too seriously. Like, if you're thinking you're going to get a really serious, very heartfelt, I think it is heartfelt to an extent, but if you're going to get that, you're really not looking at the right movie. Like, for me, it's more the comedy. It's a bit of fun that has heartwarming moments. I know we've mentioned The Simpsons before, but I would be remiss to talk about Phil Hartman just for a second, just because he is, you know, very much missed. Who knows what life would have been like if he hadn't passed so early, but he really is another shining part of this film because he's so slimy. The Simpsons relation is that he was the voice of Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz, and did other voices in that as well. Unfortunately, he died under not great circumstances, and so, you know, I don't know if this is one of his last films, but I think he died either in like 98 and 99. I can't remember, but yeah, as a kid I didn't really notice that it was him, but obviously now I do, and he's so good. He's excellent. I think he's got great comic timing. He's a sleaze in this film, and as much as I don't like him, I really like him. And it's just like, oh, I've got the reindeer. Oh, I'm making these cookies with your wife, and there's just the fact that she has no interest in him whatsoever. Yeah, he has all these women around him, and he's just actively after her. I think it's just so funny, and his banter with Arnie's great as well. And his just absolute, you know, his soul shattering when finding out that Howard is Turbo Man was just the best kind of like revenge. It's like, oh, I didn't even need to steal your son's action figure. I was about to say, I am Iron Man. I am Turbo Man. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out him as well because he really is. If Arnie's the kind of MVP, like Phil Hartman gets like the silver, just because he's excellent.
Yeah, and I think kind of with that, that's just something you can't really acknowledge as a kid. Like you don't know that character, you don't understand the meaning of what he's saying, what he's been talking about, and who he's with. And I think that's kind of again like hilarious as you get older, and is an incredible role within. Again, for a 90-minute film to fit in this, you've got sort of one lead and four supporting characters, and all of them have got like great moments, great screen time with one another, and the tests are just great, and it's very real. You can imagine there would be people like that certainly this time of year in that scenario trying to do that sort of thing. And as you said, that the fact just no interest in him, but the way it plays in Schwarzenegger's head, he's seeing him with the star. And I just absolutely love it. I think it's great. I'm glad you brought up and the fact his son's like, my dad's so much better now. He's been divorced by my mom. And it's like, the underlying of all these, obviously a terrible person as well. But
yeah,
no, I'm glad you brought that up as well. And kind of sticking with that, I know we've gone almost an hour, but let's talk some favorite scenes because we've not really spoke. You mentioned the ball pit, which I still find hilarious. I don't know why. The whole concept of the scrap at the shop, I love. I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I'll tell you what. One of my favorite scenes every time we get to it. It's not that there's the big shows in it from wrestling either. I love the fraudulent Santa business. When I say it feels real, we know not necessarily people dressed up as Santa and elves are doing this, but the people being conned into buying broken, dodgy stuff,
shoddy
fake
merchandise.
stuff. Yeah, and listen, this is as real as it gets. These days, it's just online. It's eBay, it's Facebook Marketplace, it's wherever people get their stuff from that they're desperate to get it. Autograph collecting, a hobby that I'm involved in. You see it all the time, and I absolutely love the sequence with the dodgy Santas. And again, some of the adult jokes where like Schwarzenegger first meets him is like, "No, I'm not sitting on your lap." And it's like, again, as a kid, you don't realize what he really means by what he's implying to. And I love the whole thing. It's great. Even the childish FBI raid where he picks up a fake badge and dupes them all. I absolutely love it. I probably shouldn't laugh, but the scene where the Big Show, if you don't know the wrestling term, that's the guy that's the giant Santa. When he punches someone and he basically, I don't know, like transcends to another dimension, he just flies for like never-ending away. I think it's hilarious still. Maybe
and Vern Troyer's in it.
Yeah, Vern Troyer, isn't it? Yeah.
There's some great little castings in here that was not meant to be like a joke, by the way. There's some great castings in this, including him. And I know his name, Chris Parnell, I think. And he's like one of the toy store workers. I know he's been in a bunch of things. And the thing that I popped up on the top of my head was he was in Glee for an episode, like seeing Jane Lynch. Really weird, but he's been in a bunch of things. If you see his face, you'll recognize him. I immediately IMDb'd as soon as I saw him in this film. But yes, there's some great castings in here.
Yeah. And do you have a favorite scene without jumping the gun, like, or maybe one or two that jumps out because it's such a rapid fire like story of events as well. Like it doesn't stop. It's not like, oh, it's set in 3 scenes in 90 minutes. There are so many individual sequences across the film. The actual flowing of it is something that surprised me as I've got older, but it works. Even the radio station is a weird segment, and it's like 5 minutes, but it feels like another scene of a film.
Yeah, I was gonna say about that actually. Like I mentioned Martin Mull earlier, and he's like literally in the opening credits, but he's the DJ, and he's literally in the film he maybe has like 3 minutes of actual screen time. And I think it's just crazy when that happens, when people get like, I was fully expecting, oh yeah, is he in this more? Like because I couldn't remember. But he's really not in it very long, and he has this like massive ponytail, which is not, I'm going to presume is not real. I don't think Martin Mull's ever had hair like that, but it's just such a weird choice because he's hilarious. I love him.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of favorite scenes, I don't want to, I feel like I'm being so stereotypical with what I've said previously, but it is like the ending. I love when he reveals himself. Like I got so much joy from seeing the reactions, And I love it when there is kind of like, oh, it's just nice and sweet. There's nothing else is necessary. And I love that Jamie did give the doll the action figure to Sinbad. Even though part of me's like, what? It did remind me actually, like, when I was a kid, I did have a Buzz Lightyear toy. That reminds me of this because I had the chrome silver
Did you?
Buzz Lightyear. Yeah. It's still somewhere back home, but I loved that. I loved having it. So seeing this kind of like special edition, this rare Turbo Man figure just made me think of that. So yeah, there's too many links to this film that I just love so much. But there's that, but then also just when Howard is being forced to put the costume on, and we don't really see. It's all like, oh, we see bits of it, and then we get his POV, and it's like, what's going to happen? And he rises up, and you see it. I love that. And of course, the fight with the reindeer, I just thought was so. And then the aftermath. Oh yeah, we're going to drink beer together. It was just. I don't know what I thought of that bit as a child, but me right now loved it. Loved everything about it.
Yeah. It's one of those where you can't help but think about those kind of things. As we mentioned, you mentioned that Buzz Lightyear story that goes with it. You think of individual moments across your life that's in sync of that, and then that gives you these different memories with this. And I just think that's something that can't not be spoken about with a video like this. I know it's a bit different. This is very different to It's a Wonderful Life, very different to Muppet Christmas Carol,
Very
but
much.
this is the most not real out of the three, but maybe the most relatable for us. And interesting, the last scene as well. If the last scene works because the rest of the film does, you couldn't just have one good final scene. You have to have the whole thing, and even the flow, even though it goes a bit OTT, it's still very watchable and entertaining. And you have kind of seen it. That's where the opening goes.
Yeah, there was something that I wrote down because I wrote a few notes about this, whether it was like lines or things that I just thought were really funny. And one of one of them was that one of the commentators of the parade was called Gale Force, which just I loved so much. I thought it was so funny. And then in the parade we see a Barbie, very 2023. We see a Barbie, we see Sonic, we see Paddington, we see Cat in the Hat, we see a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. But I think the thing that really got me, and I don't know why, is when a present got knocked down or something, like, and then all these like baubles just went up to the present, like to check if it was okay in the parade, and it just seemed so stupid, so silly. But it really got me. And so just like little things like that, which are on screen for seconds, if that. But just little things that just keep the humor flowing during that scene, which is very, action. Oh no, this guy's chasing this child for an action figure, which is crazy, but it has a nice meaning. But I feel, but I feel like you need to mention the end credit scene, George, seeing as you were the one who saw it at first.
Yeah, there's an end credit scene. I discovered this today. This morning, there's a group chat I'm in on Twitter. A few people were talking about Jingle. I was like, this is good timing. I need to watch it today. I didn't get a chance yesterday, time pre-recording. And so I was like, there's a credit scene. I was like, what? There's a credit scene in Jingle All The Way? Blowing my mind. There absolutely is. Get to the end of Disney Plus, it says skip credits. And there's a scene, a wonderful scene, on Christmas Day. Or Christmas Eve, sorry. The stars going up. He's got his Tadman toy. And just the moment where she turns to me, so what have you got me for Christmas this year? Unbelievable final. Arnie looked to the camera, break the fourth wall. That's what a credit scene should be. The art of the credit scene is something that's been ruined in the last 15 years. I'm not blaming Marvel. I'm blaming everyone else for copying Marvel who did it when they didn't need to. And now there's an audience in the habit that have to check their phones. There's not a credit scene on every film ever made due to that. Sorry for that tangent. But this is how they should be. It's not essential watching, but it's that little gift of you stay that little bit longer, and it's then putting a nice little moment in the film. And it's great. And that sort of sums up this film, right? That made me laugh a lot. Maybe because it's the first time I'd seen it today, that it was something new in this film, like new. But I had a blast. So yeah, watch the credit scene if you're not already. If this is a surprise to you, then so be it. It's a surprise to you, but you liked it as well, didn't you? It's just
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about it, and or at least I didn't remember it. So when George told me, I was like, we were sat here, I was like, oh my god! So I just got it on my phone, and it was, I didn't even go to Disney Plus. I just went to YouTube and typed and watched a really low quality version of it. But no, it's really good, and I love it when an end credit scene can, yeah, there's meaning in it, of course, but it's not necessary. It might, give a wink to the audience. Set something up as, oh, I wonder what's going to happen there, really light. And I think that's the thing with end credit scenes that I like, unless there's definitely like, unless there's like a direct sequel or something, I don't think it's too necessary to have it. It's very much if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, don't do it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to not include one, and for there's a lot of good reasons as to not do that. Sometimes you need the final scene before the end credits to be the final scene. Imagine if they'd done Return of the Jedi. You've got it on your head. If they'd done like end and then like halfway through, you just see, I don't know, something relating to the Emperor having survived the Death Star or something. Could you imagine? I mean, it would have helped. It probably would have helped Rise of Skywalker a lot to have something there. But
And
I mean, it would take away from the joy of the end, which, sometimes that's necessary. Not to make it too Star Warsy. I know we've spoken a lot about Star Wars already, but
this
I
is
think
the Christmas film to do it. And
Mhm.
plus December, you think of Star Wars. We're recording this on the day 8 years after The Force Awakens came out. And, Star Wars became the Christmas film. That's one of the reasons I'm also not big on Christmas films is that we were spoiled. Every year, bar 2018, for like 5 years, we were given a Star Wars film on the week of Christmas. And every job I had in that time, I'd say, I'm booking this week off. That is my Christmas. And it was every year. And then they haven't done the stars. But when 2027 comes around, or 5, whichever one is meant to be, both of them, the past will remain the past, and I shall take those weeks off unless I'm dead. I won't be working those weeks. But yeah, I don't want to plan I can't plan career-wise in the next couple of years. It scares me thinking about stuff like that, if I'm going to be honest. But swiftly changing the subject away from Star Wars for like the only time, let's do some final thoughts. I mean, again, it's not a review; it's a bit different. We spoke quite heavily, if I'm honest, with today's, like with the Jake Lloyd stuff, with Arnie. We haven't really been able to get into characters and actors until this one. And again, these videos, they're differing video to video. This isn't a normal series. This is something very different. So we've got a bit more flexibility of what we want to talk about, and it's always fun talking about them. But if we get into our final thoughts on Jingle All The Way, as I said, we're not ending these videos saying, is this film a classic film? No, we're declaring it a classic, so that's why we do them. But I've just got to say, it's so much fun going back to this film each year. It's so rewatchable. It's 90 minutes. It's an adventure. It's got one of my favorite actors of all time. It's got one of my heroes as a child. It's very down to earth as much as it can be with the real setting. The fact that it's simplistic as a Christmas present for a son. I love watching it every year. And it will be one of those traditional Christmas films I probably watched for years and years and decades and decades. And I know that every household has them. People watch the same films every year. They have to go something. Dave, who's been on the channel many a time, says that his Christmas Eve tradition is to watch It's a Wonderful Life at the cinema. That's a wonderful tradition to have. And I know he's had that for many years, which is why I didn't invite him on the episode. Not in a rude way, but I know that he watches it on Christmas Eve. So it's something like this is that with me, Jingle All The Way. And not that I go to the cinema. I know that these days it's got bigger for classic films to be released at Christmas. This is one where if like a Cineworld near me showed this, I'd probably actually like to go. Don't know if I would until I see it, but there's a few others I'm like that with, but I've never seen a Christmas film on the big screen that wasn't new. I saw The Grinch when The Grinch came out, etc., etc. So for my final thoughts, I just love it. I love this film, and I'm glad we got to talk about it sooner rather than later. And if I'm honest, as soon as you mentioned this series today, I knew, me and you, it has to be Jingle All The Way, doesn't it? At some point, we knew it'd have to be Jingle All The Way.
It's a classic. It absolutely is. Whether or not you think it's a good classic or bad classic, that's up to you. I mean, I definitely believe in the the wide universe of Christmas films that this isn't not going to be classed as an S tier or an A tier film. I definitely see it as like either B or C for the masses, I guess. But I think there are a lot of people who enjoy it. There's a few people who I told that I was going to be doing this and everyone was like, "Oh, that's great! Like, really like that film." There was no one who went, "Oh," or anything like that, or who didn't know what the film was. So that gave me kind of a good positive feeling about it. But this film is 27 years old. I mean, it's as old as you. I'm just a tad bit older, just a tad. We are at that point where I think a lot of films in the 90s that and early noughties now that were once heavily criticized do get reappraised or get seen through a modern lens. What were they going for? What was the intent? I don't expect every film to be the best film ever, most well made, or to be so deep. I think films that do have a standard 90-minute runtime are few and far between nowadays, it feels. And there's something about watching classic films, older films, where they do have a shorter runtime that goes, you know what? This really works for me. It makes it easier to sit through in a lot of cases. It means that whoever is telling the story tells it in a concise way. We love a film that knows how to pace well, without dragging things out too long or being too quick. I think this does a really it's well done here, the pacing. We do get bits of a CGI Turbo Man towards the end, which I find funny as in a time capsule way, where I like, oh, do you know what, we're in that transitionary phase where CGI is starting to be used a little bit more, but it's not so heavily relied upon. I think I mentioned that during Muppet Christmas Carol, where I think it's like early 90s where things start seeping through. But yeah, I think it is a great film. It's not my favorite, and it may not be in my top 5 Christmas films, but it'd probably be in the top 10. It's a really nice, easy watch. So I think if anyone wants to just like kind of sit back, relax, enjoy a film, maybe if you're a younger person who doesn't really know what the 90s was like, definitely watch this to kind of get a sense of the vibes that were going on. If you want to look back to the 90s, remember those good times, then absolutely put it on as well. So yeah, I think there is something for everyone too. I think all the characters, I think most do a really good job in what they're there to do. And yeah, just go watch it. Maybe on Christmas Eve. George, you're probably going to do that on Christmas Eve, aren't you? Maybe if you've got time.
Smugly says I have to see family this year. That's the standard of how normally Christmas Eve is spent at home. But yeah, it's one of them, and this is why this one's a bit different. It's been really fun to have this chat with you and kind of stick with it. I do want to hear what people think of Jingle All The Way, so please do comment if you haven't already. Comment with us, maybe also on Jake Lloyd and Arnie in this film, like other films like this that you've enjoyed over the years, maybe films people have spoken about and you've got different experience, different memories with it, because that is what makes Christmas films. It's that your memories with them are what made them Christmas classics, not necessarily a stature of it. It's a very interesting time of year for people that do watch films. But
well, maybe actually, George, maybe the question is Batman and Robin a Christmas film because of Mr. Freeze?
No. Is it set on New Year's Eve at one point, or is that no? That's a joke about the Ice Age. Ignore me.
Yeah,
but still, I think there is a New Year's Eve in there. Maybe. I mean, the Batman is a Halloween film, right? The new Batman.
Is it? So I actually don't. I've not seen it. Yeah. So
don't worry. We're not doing a Halloween series, thankfully. Christ Almighty. Although that'd be very popular.
Hey, you never know. You never know.
This God.
Cinema Savvy's Halloween Horrors. Oh,
you've already got a good name. I'll take that. But yeah, we just got to find people that like horror films for the channel, not me. I know other people do. But people at home, we keep teasing what's coming next. It's not a big revelation. It was always going to be on Christmas Eve. It's the Christmas Eve film. We're, of course, doing Die Hard next. December 24th, video going up on the channel. Spend your Christmas Eve watching it if you'd like. Watch it on Christmas Day if you'd like. Personally, I wouldn't. But it's going to be it. We're going to talk Die Hard. Listen, is it a Christmas film? I'm sure that's a question we will be answering. Yes. But maybe I'll justify those reasons. But yes, so we're going to be doing that this weekend. That's going to go up on Christmas Eve, the Sunday. As I said, this is a short series. It's been a little bit different. It's a penultimate one. Any feedback people have, always comment our way. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a staple moving forward because I've really enjoyed doing these in such a short run of time. Not saying because you're on the stream, Sam. I am enjoying doing these films, and it actually gets me watching Christmas films, which doesn't normally happen until the day someone makes me watch something like Elf. But that being said, thank you all once again for watching, for sticking with us. There are other videos coming up on the channel in the next few days. I don't know what they are, when they'll be. I don't think I'm going to be watching Aquaman. I've got a life. I don't really want to watch Aquaman. I'm watching Godzilla -1 again. So any and all videos, as always, we put them on social media, linktree.com/savvy. You'll find our Twitter, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Instagram. We'll announce any reviews. But if not, the next video is going to be Die Hard on Christmas Eve. So do join us then, and be sure to see you on then. Take care.